Today's video is about a really cool Game Boy project. If you want to take it a step further and get your own PCBs printed, head on over to PCBWay using the link in my description and they offer just that. As well as that, they're now offering sheet metal fabrication, 3D printing, CNC machining and injection molding. Massive thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Hey everyone, how's it going? Elliot here, welcome to the Retro Future. Today we're going to be taking a look at a mod that will hopefully compete against the likes of the Analog Pocket. Collectors around the world are scratching their heads at what to do because they cannot get their hands on an Analog Pocket. Unless you were lucky enough to pre-order this thing 2 years ago, it's unlikely that you're going to get one of these for the next 2 years. Unless you pay the absurd prices of eBay resellers that are selling these things for over 600 British pounds, which is insane. This costs $200, and if you want the TV out functionality, you're going to need to purchase this, the dock, which is an additional $100. But here, you then have the ultimate handheld kit. This Analog Pocket will play pretty much any handheld device, which is amazing. You can use all of your games that you have lying around and play them on a stunning IPS screen, USB-C rechargeable, a massive battery, and a beautiful form factor. And then, with the additional $100 spent on the dock, you can play them all through HDMI on your TV. It's a beautiful thing. But what do you do if you can't get your hands on one or you can't afford to do it? Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is where my little friend the Game Boy Advance SP comes in. I have kitted this thing out. It's got a new screen, it's got a bigger battery, it's got a beautiful sleek shell, which is hopefully going to look pretty much like the Analog Pocket. This right here cost me $100. Let's check out what I did and how you can do it yourself. To start with, we shall disassemble a Game Boy Advance SP. This is just a regular old pink AGS001 in average condition. There's 4 tri-ring screws, 1 in each corner. There's a small Phillips screw holding down the battery cover, and after removing the battery, there's another tri-ring screw hiding underneath. The final one is then in front of the cartridge slot. After that, we can remove the back shell piece. Remove the 3 Phillips screws from the motherboard and gently lift it up. You will need to hold it there whilst you unlatch the ribbon cable. After this is done, you can remove the PCB. I'm going to be using a black shell since this is going to look the most like an Analog Pocket. I'll be using new black buttons as well as some brand new rubber membranes. I'll also be using Retromodding's 900 mAh battery mod as well as Helder's power cleaner. And the star of the show is the GBA SP IPS kit, which has video out. And I'll use some new hinges. Let's start by taking out the contents of the screen. This is a fairly straightforward mod. I would highly recommend it for first-time modders. Most of this stuff isn't necessary. I just fancied a new shell, but for around $60, you can pick up the screen and you're good to go. Go ahead and solder the 2 larger included wires to AV and ground. This is the only soldering that is required on this board. Then go ahead and set the screen down into place. You will need to trim your shell if you're not buying a pre-cut one from Retromodding, but these are fairly cheap and most people are going to want a new one anyway. Stick down the insulation sticker and set the motherboard down. Connect the screen and stick down the control pads into place. We will look at these later. Connect the ribbon cable and fold it back behind the PCB. I'm going to tie a knot in the AV wire so I can find it again in a minute. Pull the ribbon cable and wires through the hinge, being sure to fold over the ribbon. I'll then stick the top piece down to hold all that into place and fit the ribbon cable cover. We can then set all of the buttons down and new rubber membranes. After that, I'm going to replace the L and R buttons with black ones, as well as fitting the rest of the hardware into the shell. We need to solder the remaining wire to the ribbon cable, and we can then connect the screen to the PCB. You then need to solder the ribbon cable wire to this pad here. Add some solder to pin 3 on the link cable port, as well as the ground pin on the left. Then go ahead and solder the AV wire to pin 3 and the ground to ground. That's it for soldering. We can now screw the motherboard down into place and test it. The Power Cleaner Flex PCB then gets soldered into place. Everything lines up with where you need to solder it. It's just a tricky thing to hold down. These little components are a nightmare to solder to. Be really careful not to keep your soldering iron there for too long in case you damage them or they pop off. Now we can set the back down properly and screw it into place. We can then fit the battery and screw everything else down and apply all the decals. This is an absolute unit. The original SP screen is 2.9 inches. Our new IPS display has 3.19 inches of stunning, vibrant colours, 10 different levels of brightness, touch-controlled colour palettes, and far more pixels per inch, breathing new life into your old games. As well as that, of course, we're being powered by a 900 mAh battery, which is 50% larger than the original one. The additional mods can cause unwanted noise, so Helder's Power Cleaner removes up to 80% of the noise, giving you nice crisp audio. And finally, of course, the ability to plug this thing into a TV. Now, this feature isn't perfect. You have to remember this is through AV composite, which is never going to be perfect. Unless, of course, you're plugging it into a CRT, in which case it looks pretty good. I have to say, I'm very impressed by this little thing. It costs about $100 in total with the pre-cut shell. But of course, you don't necessarily need the new shell, the battery, the power cleaner, and the new buttons, meaning the screen can be picked up for a little over $60, and that's going to absolutely transform your Game Boy. I have to say, I have a soft spot for this little device. It's so humble and it's so cute, and the fact that it can do so much makes me so happy. Yes, it isn't going to be able to play Game Gear, Lynx, Turbo Express, all the other ones, but it can play Game Boy, and it can play Game Boy Advance, and it can play Game Boy Color. And those three ones are the ones that I play the most on the Analog Pocket anyway. So in that sense, it's pretty damn sweet. It's also half the size when it's folded down, and the plastic looks absolutely identical. And paired with all of the black buttons, this thing does look like a real competitor. As I mentioned in the video, this screen is actually bigger than the original Game Boy Advance SP, meaning your games are going to look a lot nicer on this screen. You've also got 10 different levels of brightness, which is absolutely amazing, and you've got quick access to different color palettes if you so wish. Now, not at an additional price, this screen comes with the ability to plug into your TV, unlike the Analog Pocket, which involves you having to spend an additional $100. Now, unfortunately, it is slightly flawed, being that it comes out of a composite signal. That's not then to say that you can't plug it into your HDMI TV. You can use one of these little things, which is like a little adapter, that's going to allow you to do that just fine. Now, because the Analog Pocket redesigned the Game Boys from scratch using an FPGA, developers were able to then get such a beautiful crisp image out of these games, whereas this thing is a much more sort of budget version of that. that. But it doesn't mean to say that you're not going to still have a hell of a lot of fun, and you can build it yourself now, which is a huge thing. What do you do if you want to play Game Boy games on your TV now? If you don't have a GameCube, what do you do if you want to have a nice portable little thing that you can chuck in your pocket and you can't buy an analog pocket? What do? Well, hopefully this thing has answered some of those questions. Now, there is one other slight issue, and that's that the Game Boy doesn't have a headphone jack. So what are you going to do with this? You are going to have to pick up one little dongle. These things can be picked up off of eBay. There are aftermarket ones being made today that are super, super cheap. This one's quite nice because you can still charge your Game Boy if you are running low on battery. But yeah, I mean, what do you think of this thing? I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. It's just so nice. And if I'm completely honest with you, I have been playing this more than the Analog Pocket. I just really like it. I don't know, man. The Game Boy Advance SP is so nostalgic to me. It's such an iconic design. It's such a beautiful device. And in that black shell, that all black shell, oh man, it's just gorgeous. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Massive thank you to Retro Modding, who supplied me with all of the parts to do this. Please check out their link in the description below and go and visit their site. See what little bits you can pick up and build yourself an awesome Game Boy. I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace. No, I'm just messing. Bye.